March 16, 2024, 3:40 in the morning, Greenland Sea. A United States Navy nuclear submarine surfaced through Arctic ice during NATO's massive Nordic response exercise. Nearby, Norwegian surveillance aircraft tracked Russian naval activity across the Barents Sea. Less than 1,500 kilometers away, Chinese research vessels operated inside Arctic shipping corridors that barely existed 20 years ago. 3 nuclear powers, 1 frozen battlefield. And beneath the ice, an estimated 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of its undiscovered natural gas, according to the United States Geological Survey. The Arctic was once viewed as empty wilderness, a frozen buffer zone, a scientific frontier. Now it is becoming the most strategic region on Earth because the ice is disappearing. And as the ice disappears, a new Cold War is emerging at the top of the world. But the real question is this: if the Arctic becomes the next global conflict zone, who actually benefits from the crisis continuing? But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to 2007. On August 2nd, 2007, 2 Russian mini-submarines descended more than 4,000 meters beneath the North Pole seabed. Their mission was symbolic but deliberate. They planted a titanium Russian flag directly on the ocean floor. Western governments immediately understood the message. Russia was announcing territorial ambitions in the Arctic. At the time, climate scientists were already warning that Arctic sea ice was melting faster than expected. According to NASA data, Arctic summer sea ice had declined dramatically since satellite measurements began in 1979. That melting ice changed everything. Because under international law, Arctic nations can claim seabed resources beyond their coastlines if they prove geological connections through the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Suddenly, the Arctic was no longer isolated geography. It became a competition for shipping routes, oil reserves, gas fields, rare minerals, military positioning, and global trade dominance. The visible actors were obvious: Russia, the United States, Canada, Norway, Denmark. But another player was quietly moving north: China. Despite having no Arctic coastline, Beijing released its first official Arctic policy in January 2018. In that document, China described itself as a near-Arctic state. That phrase alarmed Western security analysts, because geographically, China is not near the Arctic. But economically, strategically, and militarily, Beijing wanted influence there. This was not an accident. The timing was not a coincidence. China's Arctic strategy aligned directly with its Belt and Road Initiative, the massive infrastructure and trade program launched under Xi Jinping. One Arctic route mattered more than all the others: the Northern Sea route. Stretching along Russia's Arctic coastline, the route can reduce shipping time between Asia and Europe by roughly 2 weeks compared to the Suez Canal route, according to maritime industry estimates. That means faster trade, lower fuel costs, and less dependence on choke points controlled by Western naval power. For China, this was not only commercial opportunity, it was geopolitical insurance, and Beijing moved quickly. Chinese state-owned companies invested heavily in Russian Arctic energy projects, including the Yamal LNG project in Siberia. China National Petroleum Corporation and the Silk Road Fund acquired major stakes alongside Russia's Novatek. By 2023, Russia had become China's largest crude oil supplier. Meanwhile, China expanded Arctic research stations, icebreaker development, and polar satellite capabilities. Officially, these were civilian projects, but Western intelligence agencies increasingly viewed dual-use infrastructure with suspicion. Because in modern geopolitics, scientific access often creates strategic access. Then came the military escalation. In 2019, the United States Department of Defense released a new Arctic strategy warning that both Russia and China were challenging American influence in the region. The Pentagon specifically described China's Arctic ambitions